We're here to empower high-income earners to gain back control of your time through financial independence and stop trading your time for money and start letting your money work harder for you.
And hey, if you want to meet other high-income earners on their FIRE journey, join our High Income Earners FIRE Facebook group. Every month, we'll have guest speakers and we'll share about what our team is currently working on and allow you to share what you are working on with other high-income earners. Welcome, everyone. We're back with another episode of the High Income Earners FIRE podcast. We're here today. I'm your host, Eileen Prack, and I'm here with our co-host, Cody Ye, and we've brought on a fantastic guest for you today to share his secrets in cash flow investing, MC Laubscher. He's a husband, dad, entrepreneur, investor, and educator, and he has figured out how to escape the rat race and replace his income through cash flow investing, and he shares the cash flow investing strategies that he uses and that he teaches to hundreds of other people as well, that the 0.01% utilizes in this space. So buckle up, you guys. This is going to be a great episode. You're going to hear a lot of different strategies that he utilizes. Hopefully you guys can take some of these pointers, these nuggets, apply it to your own goals. And welcome, MC. How are you doing today?
Great. And thank you so much for having me.
So MC is also known as the cash flow ninja too. And so he also has his podcast as well. And it's just going to be super fantastic. So MC, do you want to give us a little bit more of a background into you and what you're doing in this space and, how you got into all this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from South Africa and I live in the United States currently. So I moved to the US in 2001. Boy, time flies when you're having fun, right? But moved to the US in 2001. I have to say, when I got to the United States, I was just blown away about the incredible opportunity that existed in the United States. Incredible opportunity for upward mobility. I mean, I looked at everybody in the US and I'm like, man, if you're born here, like you literally won a lottery ticket because there's no one holding you back but yourself. Mm-hmm. And I am not the only person that feels that way. That's why there's so many immigrants that have become multimillionaires and billionaires. I just had someone in my community, in the Cash Flow Ninja community, send me an article about all these. There's a record number of billionaires that are living in the United States now. Of course, fellow South African Elon Musk being one of the more famous ones. But, I realized, and I looked at that and I just realized that they saw the same thing that I saw, of this incredible opportunity. And, I played sports, so I traveled quite a bit, and people get into all kinds of hobbies when they travel for sports. So I played up into in a league up until 2007. So guys play video games and do that kind of stuff. I was the nerdy guy reading economic books and history books and investing books. So I was that guy on tour in the bus or on the plane. And my mom actually gave me a book written by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it completely blew me away at that stage. And that kind of started my journey as an investor because I just became so obsessed with some of the messages that were shared in that book that I took action right away. And I bought my first property. And this is now, we're talking 2001. And I remember that I collected the rent after I got the tenants in the property, and I paid all of the bills associated with it. And at the end of the month, there was money left over. And I'm like, this is incredible. Wait a second. This is cash flow, just like in the book. This is pretty cool.
Proof of concept.
Yeah. And I'm like, how many times can I do this? This is incredible. Like, how many of these properties can I own to generate more and more cash flow? And of course, then school starts, right? For any investor that's listening to this, they're probably like, yep. And then you realize tenants don't pay rent, things break, all that kind of stuff. And the journey kind of starts, right? But the big thing there was sort of a light bulb moment for me is, wow, I can essentially accumulate capital through skills, move that capital into assets such as real estate that essentially helps me to buy my time. My future time, because it's going to pay me and continue to pay me. So that was a huge light bulb moment for me. And then I started to look at ways to manage capital and cash flow better, because people think cash flow, it's just investments, but it's also managing and positioning assets and capital efficiently and effectively so it could be used in many different areas. But I essentially tried to figure out how I could do that. And I came across the banking system and I realized, man, banks have got it figured out of exactly how to play this cash flow game. They are cash flow ninjas at this game because they invented the rules of the game. So essentially, I studied that and I looked at what banks were doing and I said, well, I need to figure out how to become my own bank. And instead of complaining about central banks printing money, how do I print my own money? And how do I manage my money like banks? So I realized I had to become my own banker and just become the bank myself. So that was another light bulb moment. And, another thing that was huge on my journey, which tied into where I am today, is I started working in real estate while I was playing sports. I couldn't hold down a full-time job because I was traveling all the time out of town, either in a different city or in a different country. So I had a friend that had a very large real estate portfolio that I met through the sport that I was playing, rugby. And they own a very large multifamily portfolio on the north side of the city of Chicago. And I literally started the bottom ground working for them as maintenance, essentially picking up trash and painting apartments and helping with apartment turnovers to eventually running construction crews, being involved with property management, being involved with leasing and getting tenants in the building, to eventually managing over 1,000 units for them. And then I became part of acquisitions. I got my broker's license. And I remember chasing this one particular real estate investor who I knew had a big portfolio of properties. And I just couldn't even get the time of day from him. Essentially, I went into the office earlier around about 7:30 in the morning, and that same investor walked out of my friend's partner at the broker's office, and he just sold all of his properties to them. And I'm like, wait a second, what just happened here? There's got to be a teaching moment here somehow, a lesson to be learned, right? And I realized that there's a game being played at a different level. There's different levels to this game, just like the sport I was playing. There's high school ball, college ball, and then pro.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing with investing. And I realized that these guys were cash flow ninjas. And in that market on the north side of the city in Chicago, nothing in the real estate market was going to move without them knowing about it, number one. And number two, if you were thinking of selling or buying or doing anything in that niche, they would be your go-to. You would first go to them before you go to anyone else, because they would either just buy your entire portfolio cash and flip it to an investor that they know that are looking for those properties, or they would hold it themselves. So I started to realize this game that, man, it's not just about competing with other folks, because it's impossible to compete with cash flow ninjas in their niche. They own that space. How do I partner with them? And then the switch kind of flipped, where if I can partner with them, I don't need to be the go-to person in every niche that I invest in. I can find those folks, the cash flow ninjas, because they're in many different niches, and then I can partner with them. And that way I get access to the best deals in the best niche, in the best market with the best operators. And that's a very, very productive way in scaling your portfolio and diversifying a cash flow portfolio. So those three things I wanted to share with your guests, because I think that they would be, or your listeners, because I think they would be very, very valuable. And then where I am today. So the Cash Flow Ninja is the brand that I built in 2016. It started as a show. We've been downloaded and listened to in over 180 plus countries and millions of downloads. And it's turned into an educational company. And we just share cash flow ideas, cash flow investing ideas, cash flow management ideas, business ideas. And then also I have two other companies. One particular is in the insurance space, where we help folks implement and execute infinite banking. And another company, we raise a lot of capital for deals in multifamily real estate and also in the resort space.
Wow, what a blast of an intro. I personally have some IBC as well, infinite banking concept. And I was introduced to that, I think, a year or two ago. And so far, I think I'm still paying, but, after like 4 or 5 years, it will carry itself. And I'll probably just keep putting more money in there. I don't really need those money, but I think my kids or grandkids will thank me for it.
Yeah. And I mean, what a great place to put money to do double duty for you, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing for folks that want to essentially try to become financially independent and financially free as quickly as possible. One of the levers to use and how you can collapse time in accomplishing that is figure out the best way to position assets or capital rather, that you can do multiple things with it. So most people know about real estate. Real estate is great, right? Because you can buy property. Then if there's equity in it, you can tap into that equity either with a cash out refi or through a HELOC and then buy another property. So now you have one property and that property helped you get another one. So one asset helped you acquire another asset without selling it. You know, you could do the same thing along the lines with businesses. We have someone in our community. They had a business which operated from a real estate property. But what they essentially did is they went to their banker and said, listen, can I put my assets of the business, which is just equipment and receivables, as collateral to get a business loan or a line of credit? And they would go, oh, yeah, sure. So they took the business loan and they bought the real estate. So now they still have their business. They have the real estate. The business is now a tenant in that real estate property still, but there's other tenants too that are now paying them rent. So now they have their business, which is an asset, but they also now have their real estate company, which is this property that they started with all these tenants that generate cash flow for them. So just because they thought a little bit, you know, strategically of where to put it. We mentioned Elon Musk, you know, and I find that the Twitter deal fascinating for many different reasons. And I know it's on hold at the time of recording, but here's a lesson here for everyone out there that's looking to figure out a way to allocate capital more effectively and efficiently. So what Elon was essentially going to do is place a very large portion of his Tesla shares as collateral to essentially get a loan. And this is, you know, asset-based lending, ABL in the industry, they call it. He was probably going to get it under 1%, you know, at the time that he was trying to do that or less. He's Elon Musk, so I don't know what deal he's got going on, but he was going to get it basically for free. And because Elon did that, he was going to put up the majority of the cash himself. Investment banks were basically tripping over each other, fighting each other off to be part of the deal and give them the rest of the money for the deal. So it was just smart use of it. And most people don't know that, but you can, if you have a certain net and you have a certain stock portfolio, you can actually do that. So you could use your stock portfolio to acquire a different asset. Now, of course, you need to know what you do. Stocks can be volatile. When they come down, you get a margin call. So you have to manage collateral. But I mean, Elon's got a pretty good team, so I'm sure he's got that figured out. You know, and the same thing with crypto, by the way. Crypto just had a huge pullback, and there was a lot of folks that use Bitcoin as collateral to borrow against their Bitcoin instead of selling it and triggering taxes. They would essentially borrow against their Bitcoin and go and buy investment real estate. Now, again, you need to know what you're doing, right? If you were doing that when Bitcoin was above 60, and now it's, I don't even know what it's at the time right now, but let's just say it's under 30 somewhere.
Yeah, a little bit
well,
under.
you needed to know what you were doing and how to manage collateral and how to manage margin and so forth. So it's a little bit of you need to be a professional investor to do that kind of thing. And that's where sort of the life insurance falls in, right? The infinite banking, which essentially life insurance is just another vehicle where you can overfund a policy, borrow against the cash value in the policy, and then use that to go and buy real estate. You know, it's kind of funny. I was sharing with someone that even in this volatile economic climate, real estate in my life insurance policies, and I've been doing this for over a decade personally, is two of the only buckets that's not in the red at the time of recording, right? So it's kind of comical. But you can also do the same thing with gold and silver. There's a lot of folks that want exposure to gold and silver in their portfolio as an investor, but they like, you know, I read all these articles. Warren Buffett says it doesn't pay me anything. That's why he buys the shares in gold companies, by the way. But it doesn't pay me anything. It's a barbarous relic. I've seen that in the news. Well, you can actually buy gold and silver and art for that. And you can place gold and silver and art as collateral with certain institutions and banks, and they will let you borrow up to 50% of that.
Yeah.
And then you can use the liquidity and buy something that pays you to hold it like real estate. So even if you want gold and silver as wealth insurance. And that's kind of how I look at it. It's something that I'm just going to hold on to. It's not something that I'm going to trade. I just have it as part of my portfolio, but you have the opportunity to lever that too. So it's not just sitting there and looking pretty for you. You can actually place it as collateral and use it for something that pays you. So it's, it's so important to figure out where you put capital to use it in many places simultaneously.
So I really think it's interesting, the fact, because a lot of times when you're talking and all about these different cash flow vehicles that people can invest in, one of the recurring themes that I keep hearing is that you're looking not just one step, but 2-3 steps down the road. Like, where's my money going to go afterwards? How can this one vehicle help me generate more by investing in these other things that I want to purchase down the road and continue to grow and build the portfolio?
Yeah, so there's a guest that I had on my show, Patrick Bet-David. He has a YouTube channel called Valuetainment, and he actually wrote a book, Your Next 5 Moves. And one of the things that he shares is that how chess players think, where just your newbie to chess, they're going to sit down and they think one move ahead of time, right? And then he's like, well, your better players think at least 5 moves ahead. Obviously, you're pros, and if you're getting right to the top, those guys are 12 moves ahead of everyone else. They probably have the game won in their head already before the first piece is being moved. But in his book, he was just sharing too that, try to think at least 5 moves ahead. And this is in all areas of your life, whether it be your you as the asset, your family, your business, and your investments. So if you get into that habit, it challenges your thinking a little bit, and you're going to start to think about many different things which you never, ever even thought about. So instead of just thinking, oh, where do I put my money that just pays me? Think about, oh, where can I position capital, leverage it into things that pays me, that reduces my taxes too, because that's the big part of this game as well. And a lot of the examples that we used, the reason why people don't just sell the assets that they have and then buy the next asset is taxes. You don't have to pay taxes on something that you don't sell. If you sell it, you do have to pay taxes. So how can I access and tap into equity or tap into the liquidity that asset would provide if I sold it without selling it?
This is so great. I mean, for Aline and I, we'll probably understand a lot of what you're doing, like the goal, and then using it to kind of use it as a blue chip stocks and then go and borrow against it. And that's something I never thought about. But here, like, MC, can I put you on the spot?
Yep.
And to kind of play a game here, a role play here. So
sure.
With all your knowledge in Cash Flow Ninja, if our target avatar is someone who's, between 35 to 45, they have a high income job, they make more than 200K, they're busy with their already active business, or they're full-time W-2s or T4 in Canada. What's their blueprint right now that they can leverage them with everything that's going on? What is that blueprint that someone can follow right now? And again, none of this is financial advice. I just want to hear your personal opinion on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, not financial advice. Here's the framework. And I love frameworks because you can use a framework, and regardless of where you are on your journey, apply that framework to what you're doing. They say personal finance is personal, and it is to every single person because we're all of unique situations. So after interviewing, 800 people right now over the last 6 years of my show, and studying what these multimillionaires and billionaires have been doing for probably 2 decades, the framework is very simple, and I like to keep things very simple. Essentially, there's a couple of steps in this framework. So the first step is you have to make your money somehow, right? You have to create capital or create cash. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of high income earners in W-2s in the United States, or 1099s, or they earn their income in the capacity of, let's just say, an employee, or there's business owners or investors. We all have a unique ability, a unique skill, a gift in which we create value to the marketplace. The capacity in which we do it is just a little bit different. So that's the first pillar. So if you're making good money already there, I always say, focus on adding another skill and making more money, right? Even in the capacity of an employee, you add one more skill, you become more valuable to an employer. So now all of a sudden Well, guess what? If you're making them more money, you're going to make more money. The second part of it is capital positioning, is where do you put it? And that's sort of the protective force of it, is making your money, then putting it somewhere where you can protect it. And there's different ways to do it. There's different ways to allocate it. And I'll get into that in a second. The third step is then cash flow creation. And this is how you become financially independent, is when your cash flow, your income from investments will be able to cover your living expenses. That's essentially when now you can work to get to the next level, which is financially free, and get to cash flow nirvana, as I say, which is the last one. But essentially, when you get to independence, now you're working because you actually enjoy it. You don't have to, and you have options. And then the fourth part is there's vehicles that you can also position capital for growth, not just cash flow. It's important to have that too, because that'll give you a nice spike, and you can then use that capital to put it into assets that produce cash flow. And then, of course, you have to protect everything through proper tax strategy, which is the biggest check you'll ever write if you're not careful about it. So tax strategy, asset protection, and of course, estate planning. So that's the framework. Make money, protect money, deploy it into cash flow, into growth, and then build a wall around this cash flow kingdom of yours. And that wall is tax strategy, asset protection, and then estate planning. So where do you start? What do you do? Well, in our portfolio, so we put a very simplified version of this, and I love to keep things very simple. So what we've done, especially this year, and we've oversimplified everything. I always say when things are chaotic in an environment, as an investor, you need to keep things very simple inside of your own personal business and investing economy. You don't want to complicate things in an environment that's already complicated outside. So we've looked at 4 different areas. And the first area is cash. And people will give me funny looks when I say that.
We're talking about step 2, right? Framework and capital position.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. So this is the framework within the framework. Cash. And when I said that 6 months ago, people said to me, MC, cash is trash. Cash is devaluing. And I said, I've said all those things. I've said all of those things myself. I know. I've said all those things. But in uncertain times, and especially when you're at market tops, you want some cash. Why do you want some cash? Wouldn't anyone listening to this right now at the time of recording, when all markets are plunging, would you like to have some access to cash right now? Absolutely. Cash is a volatility buffer. When markets go down, you have cash to then go shopping. Everybody loves Black Friday. Everybody. They'll fight each other over TVs, big screen TVs that they don't need. But when we have Black Friday, when it comes to investments, everybody's fearful and scared. Mm-hmm. They want to hide somewhere. So anyway, you need cash to go shopping when things are on sale. And then gold and silver is the other part of it, metals, wealth insurance. By the way, cash, I always advise folks to have a minimum of 6 months of cash for their burn rate in their personal business and investing economy. Metals, you could determine whether it's 5% of your portfolio and so forth. That's just what I do. It's usually 5 to 10% of my portfolio.
I think Ray Dalio will do the same thing, 5% of his portfolios in gold.
Yes. And then we have a cash flow portfolio, which I'll get to a second, because that's kind of the deploying into cash flow kind of step. So we have an allocation for that. And then we have an allocation for a growth bucket, which would be, industries that you could position capital that'll give you a multiple on your capital. So industries have been crypto and blockchain technologies, which I'm still very bullish on. You need a good flush out when there's a fraud in the system. Every market has a fraud, whether it be the stock market. It's funny. People forget Enron, right? They forget that just kind of doesn't exist anymore.
You don't like to remember the bad. That's why people like to forget.
It was a fraud that was flushed out of the markets, and it was good for the financial markets that it got flushed out eventually. It's the same thing, in 2008, where there were all these exotic financial instruments and exotic financial instruments.
CBD, but not CBD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'd all these different acronyms, and most of them got flushed out of the system too. A lot of bad companies got flushed out of the system. The same thing's happening in crypto. So there were a lot of projects that needed to be flushed. This was not a shocker for anyone that knows anything about that space. Is there was a lot of great project, probably a handful of them, really, to be honest.
1%,
Most
less
of
than
them,
1%, really.
Less than 1%. Everything else is scams or folks just, me too, kind of like copying what other folks are doing. So it needed a good flush. Then you could look at other upcoming, and there's a lot of different ones, whether it be biotech, whether it be this entire carbon credit type of market where regardless of what you think about it, that's where the money is flowing towards. And then there's also like good trades that you can put on there, with regards to energy. Lots of good. I mean, there are folks absolutely crushing it in energy right now of what's going on there. So that's kind of like the four areas, right? And it's like the Ray Dalio, like you said, right? I mean, you look at what all these guys are doing. They're not betting on one horse.
Yeah.
Look what just happened in the Kentucky Derby. You're not going to bet on just one horse. You're going to pick a couple of horses. But anyway, you're going to have a stable of horses and some good diversification in there. And with your cash flow portfolio, by the way, you want the same thing. Right now, I say to folks.
So we're moving on to the third part of our framework, right? We have the first one is you make money. Most of our listeners already have high incomes. So now they're like, where do we deploy it? So we just talk about capital positioning. We talk about first one is cash. Second one is gold and silver. Third one is some growth bucket. I didn't really get the fourth one, but I guess it was somewhere in there.
Yes. And then the cash flow portfolio is the final part of that framework inside of the big framework. And essentially the framework of your cash flow portfolio is essentially things that you invest in or buy that pays you. You hold it for it to pay you. So whether it be a turnkey property, whether it be a multifamily investment that you're doing, and if you're a high income earner, the likelihood of you being an accredited investor is probably high. So you can partner with cash flow ninjas that are doing great in the multifamily space. The cash flow portfolio too, same thing with diversification needs to be applied there. Because no one has all the answers. Anybody that tells you that they have all the answers, by the way, you should probably be walking the other way. If you look at what the billionaires are always thinking, and I again, obsessively study these folks because I always try to learn from them. They never pretend that they have everything figured out. By the way, they're so nervous that they haven't figured out everything, that they're constantly want to talk to as many people as they can with different ideas, different viewpoints. They're always thinking, man, what did I miss? Because if I miss one thing, it's going to bite me. I might think I've got everything down, but there's one thing that's going to come and bite me. So I've kind of taken that same approach too. So with cash flow, I'm very bullish on housing still. I'm very bullish on real estate, but I also do understand that there are wild cards and there are black swan events. So for that, I look at different ways to allocate capital inside of my cash flow portfolio. So there's many different ways how you can diversify in real estate, by the way. There's many different ways how you can diversify in energy markets, for example. There's other cash flow investments that you can position capital in that it gives you different stream. So if one stream's taken away, you still have other streams feeding you. You don't want to get to financial independence and be so excited and be so happy. And then all of a sudden, that only stream that you bet on is taken away. And now you're starting from scratch again, essentially.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. I love that you break down that framework really 1, 2, 3, 4. And I guess like asset protection, again, that's more diversification, whether that's through stock portfolio, infinite banking concept, real estate, your active business. Again, that's like very complicated. And I think you should ask your estate planning, financial planners.
Yeah, talk to a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Here's the message here there to not lose that message is you want to have bulletproof asset protection and estate planning, because one of the biggest threats, as I said, the biggest check that most people will ever write is taxes, and it's not going to stop. So if you're planning on building wealth in the next couple of years and you don't have that part down, you could have every other piece down, but you don't have your asset protection and your estate planning down. You're leaving, that is a blind spot. You don't have to do anything wrong in North America to get sued whatsoever. And of course, when it comes to estate planning, there's a lot of things that are being proposed, not just in the United States, but most of these Western democracies that they'll come for tax. They're going to raise taxes on estates. Dead people don't vote. So they're going to go after their money. So you need to have all those things in place. It'll be very, very tragic for anyone listening to this that is excited about building wealth and want to build wealth, that is successful at building wealth, but then it's lost because you didn't take care of your tax strategy, your asset protection, and your estate planning.
Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners will be in their growth phase, make money, keep making more money, start throwing into some capital positioning, start making some cash flow, maybe invest in real estate, whether this actively or passively. And then I think that, the last part is really asset positioning, estate planning, and, setting up the right structure, whether that's having a trust or having certain things when you get to certain levels, right? So it's a learning process, like you said. And I really appreciate this framework. I think a lot of high income earners will be able to capitalize on this. Now, with that being said, I know you're already, probably a billionaire by this time. What's your version of financial, financial independence, retire early? I know you're not really retire. A lot of us are, we're in that state that we get the most sense of achievement from achieving more, and we love the process. So what's your own version? What's a cash flow ninja version of FIRE?
Money no longer becomes the reason why you're doing something and not doing something. So it's a completely different mindset. A lot of folks do something because they have to do it. They spend time with people because they have to do it. They're forced to stay in one location or a certain location because they have to do it. And they have to focus on projects that is not within their purpose, their sole purpose of why they're here, their mission. My definition of just freedom in general is the complete opposite of that. I get to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, with whom I want to do it, where I want to do it. And I get to focus on the projects that I find exciting, that I find inspired by, and that I believe is aligned with my purpose and my mission. And that's why, I love the stuff that I'm doing currently. I don't look at it as work at all. So the Cashflow Ninja brand and the podcast, I literally look at it as, man, I get to jump on a phone call with successful people and learn from them. It has exponentially increased my own learning. Yes, my listeners are right beside me and learning right beside me, but I get to do it every week. And it's sort of forced learning because I have to record episodes every week. And again, I don't feel like I'm being forced to do it. It's just like, oh my goodness. It's like once you get exposure to that on a weekly basis, you just want more and more and more. So yeah, I love what I do. I'm never going to stop doing it. And all the projects that I've been working on from an investment standpoint, I've been working with partners that inspire me, that are playing at a high level, that are involved with projects that are inspiring and super cool to be a part of. So that's been really, really great.
No, fantastic. There's so much in that episode. There's so much just knowledge and nuggets that you just dropped right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. We really respect your time. I wish you have more time. We're going to go into our lightning round. We're going to fire you some very interesting questions. So let us know when you're ready for it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So we'll start out with first question, which is, if you become a billionaire tomorrow, if you're not already a billionaire with the B, what will your day look like?
I don't think I would change much. So I have 2 young children, and, a lot of folks I would say, gurus and folks talk about, oh, I'm up at 4:30 and I'm running 20 miles and then I journal and then I do this. I don't do any of that. So I actually wake up with my children. We have breakfast together and so forth. Then I get my workout in. I do my thinking time, which is I block off 30 minutes to an hour just to work through some thinking exercise that I have, breaking down my day, looking at dangers, opportunities, and strengths. And then I work on the projects that I'm interested in, meet with people and talk to people that I'm interested in. And then I wrap up the day. I work about 4 days a week right now, and I don't call it work as we talked about earlier. I just call it living my mission and fulfilling my purpose.
Love it.
MC, and if you had to start all over again, let's say you lost everything, but somebody gave you a check for $500,000 and said, start over, build whatever you want to build, gain your financial independence again, what would you do first?
I would first figure out what the market needs to start. I would actually start a business first, because the reason you have a business is to buy your cash flowing assets. And the business would do two things. Number one, intellectual shortcuts. There's too much information. I still hear people talk, we're in an information economy. I think it's over. We're now in an attention economy. The information age is over. It's the attention age. There's too much information. So what people find valuable is if you can provide an intellectual shortcut. I just bought a course from someone and went through that course and learned everything that person has learned, everything, and tactical implementation of it in 1 month. That took that person 24 months. That's valuable. I'll write a check for that. The second part of it too is network shortcuts. Network shortcuts is when you build a powerful network of power players and very, very just great people playing at a high level. It takes a long time to do that. That's not an easy feat. And it takes a long time to attract that. So it could take you, I look at my team of advisors. It took me almost 2 decades to put it together. But if I can offer other people the opportunity to be able to tap into that network and offer a network shortcut, a network that took me 2 decades to build, that's valuable. So that's what I would do. I would start a business and I would focus on what the challenges are in the marketplace, how I can help people overcome those challenges or create desired outcomes. And it would focus on those 2 strategies, intellectual shortcuts or network shortcuts.
That's like golden, because like when I ask this question to every guest, but this is the first time I heard about this, right? And I'm so great that you share this. Intellectual shortcut could be, coaching, could be mastermind, could be anything. And when people first start out, because I get on a lot of sales calls as well, especially for high income earners, they're not used to paying for a big amount of money for intellectual shortcut, for someone showing them the blueprint. But meanwhile, they try to figure out themselves, they can lose money. It takes longer, and opportunity might not be there, and they might actually lose money and give up, right? So what's a better way to learn than learn from someone who was already doing it? Even Tony Robbins said it himself. Now you're buying the blueprint, buying back your time, and reduce a lot of the risk, right? So I love that. And the second part, networking shortcut, is I guess that's why you have your Cash Flow Ninja podcast, right? I love what people, we're really just having a chat, just like this podcast, but everyone else get to listen in, and you build a good relationship with all the guests and different hosts, right? And these are all people playing at a high level. And, who knows? We really we're not like, networking is not really just about, like taking advantage of each other. You're as strong as an individual, as a team, then how can we help out each other and help out more people, right? And that's why I really call it networking. It's not just how can I get something from this person, right? So I love it.
and think about it that way too. This is what I've learned from billionaires. Essentially, they value their time a lot. So intellectual shortcut, they're not going to spend hours figuring out exactly how to do something. There's an individual that is in that class that I had a phone call with, and he called me about podcasting, and he just wanted to learn about podcasting, for example. And he said to me, instead of him going online, to go and figure out what podcasting is, or is it something that he should even explore, he's like, I'll just go find the guy that is in my network or that was referred to me by a friend of his, and talk to him for an hour about podcasting and learn everything that I need to know in an hour. So just right there, within an hour, because I provided an intellectual shortcut for him, he finds it valuable. And again, this is a person that's a billionaire. And then now all of a sudden, 6 years or 7 years that I've done podcasting, all of my knowledge, he got in an hour. And he found me in his network. These people know how valuable networks are and intellectual shortcuts are. So if you're stuck somewhere, you're a high income earner and you don't know how to get to the next level, I wish somebody had told me these two things 20 years ago, because I would have had a completely different life. It took me 20 years to figure this out. And I am a little bit of a slow learner. It's said tongue in cheek. But yes, these two things, if you're a high income earner and stuck, these are the two things that will get you to the next level.
I just love it. I love it. I love it. This is the gold, such a good golden nugget. Now I'm going to go into the next question. This question usually for people who doesn't have a podcast, but for you already have a podcast. So if you're a podcast host right now at this point, who would you like to interview?
Wow, that's a great question. I'd like to actually interview Elon Musk. I'd like to interview Elon on my show. That'll be a tough one because he does like one show a year, I think, and he's going to do Joe Rogan before he does the Cash Flow Ninja. But
he's already on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think he's there's a lot of lessons that I've learned from him studying him. And one of the big lessons that I've learned from him, which is he's an absolute genius at, and his team, and I'm talking purely from a business standpoint, which is marketing, sales, and fulfillment, essentially business, is he's a marketing genius. Just think about what Elon has been able to accomplish as a marketer in the time that we live in. We literally had a COVID narrative, for 2 years. And then when COVID narratives kind of like faded away, now we have World War III. And this is leading every single headline on every single media platform around the world. And guess what? Elon just said, no, not if I can help it. He just inserted himself there and people started talking about Elon Musk. During COVID and World War III and all this chaos and the next virus and the next this and all this craziness happening in the world. And he has found a way to get attention, and not only get attention, to dominate a news cycle. I mean, that's marketing students like don't go to college and study marketing. You study what the best players in the marketing game do. That is absolutely genius. So that's one of the things that I would want to pick his brain about. Like, how did you guys strategize this? Because this is not by accident. None of these folks just do things by flying by the, just kind of saying, I'll just riff, just kind of, no. This was very strategic.
Very intentional. Yes.
Very intentional, very tactically. It's like in the old days where this is before internet, before social media, when Donald Trump was the real estate billionaire in New York, where he would dominate a news cycle by purchasing like basically newspaper, like full page, ads in the New York Times. Elon has obviously got the tool of social media, but it's incredible to study, to look at all right, what is he doing? He's very effective. He's very effective and efficient at what he's doing from a business standpoint. So anyway, that's one of the reasons why, there's a lot of other stuff that you can talk, ask him or interview him about, but I find it fascinating what he's been able to accomplish from a marketing standpoint.
Awesome. Beauty. I think Elaine has his camera off, so I'll ask the next question. What are some of the ways, I know you already have a huge community, you're giving back a lot of intellectual property really for free for a lot of your listeners, but what are other ways that you're currently giving back, or you're thinking about moving towards that direction of giving back? I know, at the state where you are, you really want to give back more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we could talk about financial give, and that's actually the easy part. And it's not, to belittle that at all, but that is, when you think about what your most valuable and your most precious commodity is, it's actually your time. It's actually your time. So how you spend your time is something that I like to give back to, whether it be, spending time with young entrepreneurs, whether it be, helping out. There's some great educational programs, by the way, for children right now, entrepreneurial programs and children business fairs and so forth. So that's kind of how I try to do it. We obviously do give back financially as well, but I'm trying to be cognizant too of thinking of hey, you need to give some of your time too, because that's actually what is really important to you. And that's how you actually give. You give something of great importance. So yeah, I mean, the universe works in strange and mysterious ways. And the universe is all about energy, and energy flows. And you need to be giving. And even if you just start, right? Like If you don't have money, you can go and volunteer somewhere. If you do have money, you can write a check and you can give back your time by helping other folks that are looking for mentors, the same way that you did when you first started. And by the way, that's one thing that I've noticed from really successful people too, is they're always finding that next person, young person coming up that they can see themselves in, if that makes sense. And they see that person's taking action and willing to take action, and then they want to help them. And there's usually not a financial exchange there. It's usually giving back. But yeah, some of the wealthiest folks that I've met and behind the scenes, most generous people on the planet.
Yeah, of course, that's for people already proven that they will take the advice and implement it, even if they fail, come back, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that will say, yeah, great, these are all great advice, but do nothing. Right. So you can only help out the people who are ready to step up and take action. Even if they fail, it's respect, right? It's a lot of respect for that. And I think that's for a lot of us is we respect our time, but if we see the progress in you, like we are willing to invest more, but we just can't just have tire kickers because there's a lot of them out there as well. Right.
I spoke with a young man and he just achieved basically financial independence. And I think he's 26, 27.
Nice.
And I asked him, and he had a mentor that helped him. And I asked him, where did you get your mentor? And he said, you know what I did, MC? I did my first real estate deal all by myself. And then I went to meetups and real estate events. And then I found a very successful person. And he said, and when he started talking to me, I told him that I just did this real estate deal. And is there something that I did wrong? And all of a sudden that person was like, oh, I'm helping this guy.
Yeah.
Because he took action.
Yep.
He didn't show up to a meetup and be like, oh, who can help me? And, kind of like, who could be my mentor? No, he already took action, bought his first property. And then he was there and he was like, all right, I haven't figured this out yet. And he was talking to successful folks. And those are the type of folks that successful people are going to see themselves in and be like, wow, he already took action. And I can see he made a couple of mistakes, but he took action. I'll help that person. So anyway, so that would be advice too for folks is, don't ask also these very successful people. Don't just ask them, how can I help you? Ask them, what are you working on? What are you excited about? That's one thing that I've learned with folks that are very successful. And once they tell you that, then you think about, all right, he's excited about this and he's doing this currently. How can I help him with my skill set or my capacity and be of value for him or her in the projects that he's excited about? And that's how you truly find these folks to take an interest in you. I mean, that's one of the things that I did. They're excited about, let's just say a book launch or a project. Yes, I can have them on my podcast. I can help promote them. I can bring them out as a guest speaker and buy copies of the book and spread it around and so forth. So there's many different ways that you can do. I just listed an example there of things that I've personally done, but there's many different ways that you can add value for someone. If you're young and you're starting to make good money, and let's just say, social media very well or different ads. And let's just say it's like a TikTok or YouTube or whatever it is. I guarantee you, most of the successful folks have no idea what to do with a TikTok account. No idea. I have no idea. So those are already just right there. If you are skilled with, like, let's say TikTok or YouTube or something like that, you could be a value for them and help promote them on what they're working on or something like that, or show them how they can open up an entire avenue. That's how you find mentors. That's how you find those folks.
I love it. I just love you keep firing golden nuggets out. I wish you had more time. Where can our audience find more about you? I know you have a whole community back there. So where do you want to send people to learn more? Cashflowninja.com. And for your listeners, we talked about diversification and cash flow. I have a book that is called The 21 Best Cash Flow Niches. It's available at cashflowninja.com or on amazon.com. This is an intellectual shortcut, and I provide network shortcuts in it. And if your listeners grab a copy, please screenshot a proof of your purchase and send it to my team at info@cashflowninja.com. And we will give them access to a digital version of the book, an audio version of the book, a curated library
of Cash Flow Ninjas discussing the niches that I talk about in the book. So you don't have to listen to 850 episodes and more bonus goodies, but it's available at cashflowninja.com or on amazon.com.
I love it. I love that kind of that funnel over there. I love it. I love it. Eileen, do you have any more question for MC or this has been
No, I mean, we could keep him on for like hours and hours, MC, just picking your brain, but we definitely want to be respectful of your time. And we so appreciate you coming on the show and dropping those value bombs and golden nuggets everywhere.
Yeah, we're going to definitely have you back in the future. But with that being said, we're really happy you're on and it's been a blast.
Thank you so much for having me.
All the links mentioned in this episode are included in the show notes. And if you love this episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple iTunes. The link is also included in the show notes. And we would really appreciate your help in spreading the word to more high income earners on how they too can maximize both their time and money.
Also, if you still haven't joined our High Income Earners Facebook group, you are missing out on High Income Earners community where we help each other reach our own version of FIRE.